Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Life, Love, and Conservation with Carolyn Hennesy. I am your host, Carolyn Hennesy, and I am coming to you from the Flophouse Studios, as I am calling them, because we're out in my garage, which I have termed the Flophouse. And just for everyone's, interest and edification, this is the third episode. So we are still finding our way. I am sure that every fabulous podcast, Joe Rogan or, every radio show, John and Ken, if you're in the LA area, they started out and they had little, bumps and little, issues along the way. So we are still, of course, finding our way. I am co-hostless this week, with the exception of the evergreen co-host, my producer, Eric Davis, who will be joining me in just a few moments off and on, and is going to be the true co-host for the conservation segment. And Eric is a host in his own right. He hosted the Awesome Ocean podcast and is one of the great conservation preservationists on this planet. So I am so lucky to have him as my producer. But as you can see, today it's just me. So I hope you all hope that's okay. So today we're going to start out, as we always do, with a life segment. And I know that a lot of the fans, we've been getting such great response to this podcast from fans, certainly General Hospital fans, the most dedicated, loyal, and intelligent fans of anything on the planet. Truly. And I've met so many of them, and I can say this, but also from others who have made suggestions about what I should talk about with regard to life experience, life issues. And so today, in honor of my fabulous General Hospital fans, we're going to talk a little bit about that. So one of the things that, hello, Eric. Look,
hello.
Eric.
I just want to help kick this off. And I reach out to a whole bunch of people who want to hear General Hospital stories. And I know, for me, like my grandma, may she rest in peace, she died in 2008, and she was a religious General Hospital fan. And my sister and I were talking about that the other day, and one of the things that she brought up was like, oh, she wondered if she'd actually ever seen you on screen.
What?
So I was like, oh, actually, I wonder about that. So I looked up, and I think you started in General Hospital in 2006. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm in my 15th year.
Oh, so good. And then you also had your 500th episode. And so
yeah. And what's interesting about that is there are a number of people, certainly people under contract, who have their 500th episode, and it kind of goes, unnoticed. But mine did not last October when it aired, because I was supposed to be on the show for 2 days, 2 episodes.
Yeah.
And that was 15 years ago. Now, I have talked a lot about this in various interviews, but there are still people who don't know this. Yes, 2 days. They brought on the character of Diane Miller. I got a call from Mark Teschner, who I literally built a shrine to, because the man really jump-started my career 15 years ago by calling me and saying, hey, Carolyn, I've got 2 days of work for you in General Hospital. Are you available? Are you interested? And I said, of course. For you, Mark, anything. And he said, okay, great. You're going to be the lawyer for Sonny Corinthos. And I said, fantastic. Who's Sonny Corinthos? And I heard this thud. And when Mark picked himself up off the floor, after being in a coma for literally, 30 seconds, he said, you don't know? And I said, no, I don't. I have not. Sorry. I have not been watching the show. He said, well, Sonny Corinthos is is the hottest character on daytime at that time. And I think probably still is. And Maurice Bernard, who plays him to a T, is the hottest actor in daytime. And I went, okay, great. But that being under a rock for me really helped me going in, because I was not, I am now in awe of Maurice and what he does with Sonny, but I wasn't then. So I was able to go in and be his lawyer without this adulation and kind of hero worship, which totally helped me, because my first episode was with Spinelli, I believe, in the PCPD, the Port Charles Police Department. And this crazy little kid, played by Bradford Anderson, to a T again, goes and throws his arms at one point around Diane Miller. And the way I reacted, because it was so unexpected, the higher ups at that time saw this and they said, oh, this is very interesting. The way she's sort of reacting with all of these characters, especially Spinelli, is something we haven't seen a lot of on this show. So let's explore that a little bit, right? That's number one. The second day I was with Maurice. Diane was with Sonny in his living room. And Maurice, actually, I think there were two scenes, one in the PCPD and one in Sonny's living room. And the first scene in the PCPD, Maurice and I were sitting backstage waiting to go on, which is unusual. Usually all the characters are sort of kind of in the scene as it opens. So we're sitting backstage waiting to go into the PCPD, and Maurice is talking to me about, he said, I came on this show umpteen years ago, and I'm like as the Godfather, and I wanted to be like the next Godfather. And I said, well, from what I understand, you are. And he said, yes, and I've kind of worked this and I've done this. And he was going, he said, and I'm bipolar. And I went, oh, well, I didn't know that he was so out about that, had gone on Oprah about that, and was really, really championing mental health issues. But he said, yes, I have bipolar, and I was been institutionalized because I tried to kill my wife several times. And he goes, and now let's go act. And he goes, and I went, what, huh? And so I go in, and I'm literally supposed to be standing here next to Maurice, and I'm kind of like standing over here. It's like, Carolyn, please. I go, oh, okay. All right. And then I would sort of look at him and kind of go, oh, like this, but he's so funny, and he likes to mess with people like that. Didn't know that at the time. And now he's literally somebody who is so near and dear to my heart. I love Maurice with, like, the heat of 1,000 suns. I just adore him as a human being. So then, right. So now I'm sort of looking around, trying to find, the nearest exit. So either that day or maybe a day or two later, when they started bringing Diane back, we're in Sonny's living room, and Sonny is seated. Diane is across the desk from him, kind of 50-50, and he's saying things, and I'm kind of leaning into him with what he needs to do. Diane, the lawyer, is speaking to Sonny Corinthos, and she's kind of hammering him a little bit about things he needs to do. And so Maurice was like this. He would say his lines like this. Well, yeah, I don't know if we should maybe kind of get to the talks. And I'm like, oh, like, you motherfucker. I don't know if my cue line is in there anywhere, but I don't care, because you are not going to mess this up for me. This is a great gig, and they've called me in for a third day. So I just ramrodded over him, and I saw Maurice's eyes go wide, and he kind of looks up at me, and he says in that moment that he realized that I was someone that wasn't afraid of him, and that who he could play with, who he could really we could get to some. He thought at that time, it was so new, that we could get to the meat of a lot of these scenes. Well, I started, really going after him, and there's a call, like, from Burbank, apparently, because the show is filmed over in Los Feliz, in that area of Los Angeles, but it's on the feed to the Disney ABC studios in offices in Burbank. And so apparently a call came from Burbank into the booth. The booth, there's a call. Everything stops, and it's like the voice of God says, Carolyn, Diane cannot speak to Sonny like that, because he will put out a contract on her. He will kill her. It's like, okay, because I was being the lawyer protecting my client, but apparently it wasn't. I needed to throttle back a little bit, but Maurice loved it. And so Maurice, as he says, I think he went upstairs to the 5th floor, where, I couldn't go. I can't be in on those. I can't make an appointment to meet with then Jill Phelps, who was the executive producer, and Bob Guza, who was the head writer, who love him or hate him, and fans feel both ways. I personally love this man. I revere him because he he created Diane Miller, and so he, myself, and Jill, we all sort of had input into this, and a wonderful woman named Elizabeth Cordy, who at that time was Bob's right hand woman person. And so Maurice went up and had talks with these people and said, let's bring her back. Let's keep bringing her back. So he was instrumental. So he and Steve Burton, and the two of them, and the way Diane was being played, all were instrumental in keeping her on. So, but that was 15 years ago, supposed to be 2 days. So that is why the 500th episode was splashed all over the place. And the fans were just so, just loving it. And I remember the fans in the beginning, so warm, so welcoming, because there still isn't really a character like Diane on any other soap. It's certainly not on General Hospital. Diane, as I am interpreting her, one of the things that I am playing is that she's the Greek chorus. She gets to say what certainly to people like Sonny or Jason when he was on and then off and then on again on the show, or Nance, or Alexis or Carly. Certainly she gets to say these words of wisdom, these pearls, and the tough love that nobody else is allowed to say to them. She gets to say what the audience is screaming at the television, at the character, that nobody else can say, which is why I think the fans love her. She's also really spunky, really smart and sassy, takes no prisoners. And the fans really, it resonates with the fans. And again, as I say, the fans of General Hospital are the smartest, the most loyal, so dedicated, and funny and lovely people. And as I say, I've met so many of them at the fan events, the GH fan events. I wish I could meet more, so maybe we can, maybe the fans can get together and make that happen. I don't know. I'm going to try. I'd love to do a soap cruise. I think that would be so much fun. So those are some of my stories with Maurice. And it's so interesting because I just had, and it just aired, so I can talk about it. I just had scenes with Maurice on the stand. Did it air? I think it just aired. A friend of mine just talked to me about it. Yes. Okay. Just on the stand with a trial that happened. Nina wants custody. Nina wants visitation with Wiley, and Michael and Willow don't want that. So Nina and Sonny are kind of on again. I mean, they're sort of figuring out their romantic relationship. So Sonny is going against his son Michael, and it was. So Diane had to put Sonny, because I'm representing Michael and Willow, right? They don't want Nina. Anyway, it's best interest of the child. And Nina's a nutcase. But I had to put Sonny Corinthos on the stand. Now that, for Diane, she's got her boss, because she's still on retainer. The whole Corinthos family, right? Carly, Michael, even though Michael and Sonny, his father, they hate each other. So she's still on retainer. So representing Michael, that's still under the Corinthos umbrella. So she's put her boss on the stand and is grilling him. And both Maurice and I, we locked eyes at one moment, and it's a devastating thing. It was devastating for me as Diane,
yes,
to be hammering my boss and eliciting information that could only help my case, not the case of his, erstwhile girlfriend. And Maurice and I both agreed that it was tough. It was really, really tough, because don't forget, Eric and Grandma, that Diane having no story, when I came on, was a creation. So every character is played differently by any actor, because it's coming through this filter, right? Yeah. But there was so much of me that is Diane.
Yes.
In fact, Diane actually gave Carolyn this love of shoes, which has been terribly expensive for Carolyn.
It,
So I was able to, and so when I say it was very tough for Diane, it was also very tough for Carolyn, very tough for Carolyn to grill Maurice like that, to grill Sonny like that. So we've got, but apparently it went very, very well. I've had some friends call me and say that should be on your Emmy reel. It's like, okay, yay, maybe. It's not bad having on your Emmy reel acting opposite, one of the best actors in daytime.
of course.
So there you go. So those were my couple of days and my Maurice stories. I tell that story. And actually I told that story about him saying, I tried to kill my wife several times. Let's go act. I told that story. I know, right? I told that story on his podcast, which is State of Mind, a wonderful podcast. And Maurice just started laughing so hard. It's like, yes, you little minx, you little scoundrel. You were trying to fuck with me. Those are two General Hospital stories.
I will admit, as your friend and someone who loves and adores you and cares a tremendous amount about you, it's always funny when I see you in things because it's always like seeing where Carolyn blends into the character.
Right. Well, I have to. There are roles that I have done. For instance, and you didn't fly down from Seattle to see this, but I did Masterclass.
Yes,
I did Masterclass, Maria Callas on stage, and to a man, everybody who said it, who spoke to me afterwards, said I didn't see an ounce of Carolyn on it, and that is a tremendous compliment.
Well, I felt that way about you and St. Agatha.
St. Agatha, yes, I know.
Yes,
I know. Everyone, find St. Agatha, watch St. Agatha, and then see if you come back for this podcast.
It's very weird to see one of your best friends and be like, I love this person, but oh my gosh, this isn't my friend.
It's not. And I was actually, and I'll be very honest with it. This is me to the world. So I'll be very honest. I was in therapy at the time when I left, and then I came back and resumed therapy. And I told my therapist, I said, well, I had to do this because it's a horror movie and I am the big bad.
Yes. Oh, you're bad.
And so at one point I asked this particular nun, I instilled this suggestion in her brain. I say, so your tongue is wagging. So you either have to leave the convent, or I know you saw this, or you have to stop your tongue from wagging. And I go around my desk, and I pull out a pair of scissors and I place them on the desk in front of her. And I'll say, I'll just leave you to your decision. Well, it's very obvious what I intend her to do. And she does. But I come back in after, and she's only been able to do it partially because the pain, right? And so I come back in and I said, I pitched this to the director, Darren Bousman, and I said, well, how about if Mother Superior finishes it off? I mean, just finishes the job. And Darren looked at me and went, and I said, hey, you're directing this thing. You directed Saw 2, 3, and 4. What do you think? Yeah. Right? And she said, that's a great idea. So I did, and knowing that it was a prosthetic, seeing the guy behind the desk, pumping the blood and making sure it's spouting all over. It's like, that was, so I come in and I tell my therapist that I've done this. And she says, how are you able to walk back from that? And I said, are you okay sitting across from me on the couch? Are you okay? And I said, yes, because that's an actor. That's an actor doing the job. That's not Carolyn. Hopefully, that's an actor doing the job. And it was funny because when the film premiered in New Orleans, and so all the young novices all the young girls who played these young girls in the film, they came and they stayed with me. I've got a place that I can stay in New Orleans, and and a lot of the questions were about, that particular scene.
Oh, oh. Well, now
When we had the Q&A.
oh,
I
so
know.
now we're talking about something spooky. Let's move on to what you love. And
And speaking of what I love, yes. And what, yes. Oh, it's me. I think you should stay on for this. I really do, because you and I talked
okay,
about this.
okay, I'll stay on.
And it just happens to be, a
Yes.
very interesting segue, because we talked about what I love, and
Mhm.
for this particular segment, what I love can be anything from meatloaf. Do you think we can do 15 minutes on meatloaf?
Oh,
I can.
I can
I can.
definitely do it.
Absolutely.
I can do 15 minutes.
On anything we love. Exactly. Yeah. But we talked about the fact that very soon I'm going to take another trip to New Orleans. Doesn't matter if it's the heat of the summer. Don't care. Don't care, because New Orleans is the one place where humidity is just fine for me. Because you walk outside and everything sort of clings to you. And it's very sort of Tennessee Williams. Mama, I'm so hot. Mama, I can't move. Get me a glass of lemonade. Oh, mama. Anyway, so I love, so I love New Orleans.
Yes.
I love that.
I would love to be persuaded to love New Orleans.
Okay. All right. So here are my thoughts on this city, because I know a couple of people, my sister-in-law included. So Becca, when you're watching this, she was in New Orleans, I think, for like 48 hours. And what she saw was not the city that I know and love. She was there for a work. She was like on a work tour, and she spent some time out in the Gulf of Mexico on an oil derrick. And so she didn't really see it, but what she saw was like early in the morning, and it was dirty, and I think she went to certain areas that were not terribly savory or whatever. And I said, so Becca, you have to come back with me. Eric, you have to come with me. Because when I first went to this city, the Big Easy, the Crescent City, I had moments where I was walking around the 144 blocks of the French Quarter, and there will never be ever more than 144 blocks. I don't think there will ever be any less, because it's historic, and every building is historic in the French Quarter. So there's going to be no encroachment of new building. But when I was walking around those streets, the smells coming out of the kitchens, the garbage, the Mississippi River right over the levee, the people walking by, the humidity that takes scent with it. It was so revolting, and yet intoxicating at the same time. So even that which was offensive was mixed in and made the scent of this city is sex and history and depravity and consumption, and it infiltrates your taste buds, and it's the overriding sensuality of that city. So while I was walking around and experiencing that, because I'll tell you something, the sense of food being cooking, coming out of these restaurants, that alone will transport you to heaven. That alone, period. Because while I was walking around, I was with my then boyfriend, and I would say, I know what's around this corner. It's this. And I would say, I know what's in this courtyard. Take a look. And he, the courtyards are basically all of the homes off of the streets in the French Quarter are basically almost all of them, gated off. But you can look through certain chinks in the wood. And I said, it's this. And he'd say, yep. And I'd say, this is this, and here's this, and this is this. So in addition to this heady scent, I was flooded with a sense of deja vu, of having been there before. And I know I was there before. Don't know what I was, but I love the city so much. I don't have awful feelings about it, that I probably was doing well. I don't think I was a prostitute. I might have been a madam. There you go. Owning the joint. And things like that. I think I did well. So that's one of the reasons. The architecture of this is, again, it was very familiar to me. and it's fallen down. A lot of it's just fallen down, but it won't. It can't. It's like these posts and these balconies that you just know you should never walk out on, which are holding 30 people. They are keeping themselves up by sheer force of their own will. And you get a sense that this city is a grand lady who's dead, but she doesn't know it. She will not give up the ghost, and she's just going to continue on forever. Then let's talk about the food. Well, for a foodie like myself, there are moments in almost every meal in New Orleans, and I don't care if it's a Commander's or Brennan's. And I just finished reading Miss Ella of Commander's Palace, Miss Ella Brennan, and her life story, who she started in her kitchen, Emerald Lagasse, somebody else's name I can't remember, whatever. Anyway, she, Commanders. It's one of the great institutions. It's a must. It's a must go to. So Brennan's, Commanders. You eat the brunch at the Court of the Two Sisters. You find little out of the way places. The Acme Oyster Bar, Mosca's, Pascal's Manali. You get muffalettas at the Central Grocery. It doesn't matter what or where you are. There will be a moment in your meal where you simply have to stop speaking, and you have to take in, your soul has to sort of take in what's happening. My favorite restaurant in the world is there. It's called Cafe Atchafalaya, and it's over on Louisiana Avenue, up in just outside the Garden District. It might actually be in the Garden District. Anyway, and they do like Sunday brunch, a duck hash with a Creole hollandaise that makes you weep. It just makes you cry. And you have people sitting around you going, Carolyn, why are you crying? It's like, just shut up. I can't talk. It's so good. It's so good. Your taste buds are, well, they're dancing. They're just dancing. Okay, now let's talk about the music. Because you will hear things. You will see performances in New Orleans that are sometimes just, this is how I pick up a trumpet. This is what I do. This is how I pick up a clarinet. This is de rigueur for me. This is I do this. I can do this 24 hours a day. That for us watching, it's like literally you're watching God. You're watching God play a trumpet, or God's coming down and doing a little dance around this person. And if you Chipatinas, that's a must. But really where you want to go is Fretzel's on Bourbon Street, and we can talk about Bourbon Street in a moment. Fretzel's for like old time, almost like Dixieland jazz. And you shut up. You do not speak while you're watching these, right? These musicians. And then you can take a walk down Bourbon Street, passing Jean Lafitte's blacksmith shop, which has now become a bar, and it's his original forge. It's his original blacksmith shop. And there's no light except the neon over the bar that says, beer, and candles on the table. So you just have to kind of find your way, but it's an experience. So you walk down Bourbon Street, you cross the Esplanade, and you go to Frenchman. And Frenchman has all the clubs, all the great clubs. And it doesn't matter which one you walk into. You are going to see and hear and experience some of the greatest musicians on the planet. And for me, when I land in New Orleans, get to the house and then kind of unpack, and I just find out, or I've actually pretty much found out where he's playing beforehand, where John Boutet is singing. And for those who have watched Treme, John Boutet sings, down in the Treme, just me. I can't do it justice, but he does the title song. And listening to John Boutet sing, John Boutet is he's a New Orleans treasure, he's a Louisiana treasure, he's a national treasure, he's a treasure of the universe, because his voice literally is a direct through line. You're listening to God. And he does a version of Hallelujah. Everything stops. Everything in the quarter stops. Everything stops. And you can start singing with him, but you don't want to, but he invites you to on that, on that chorus. and it's transportational. So what have we covered? Oh, and we've also covered the streets. So you've got Royal Street, where all of the antique stores are. A lot of the antique stores are. We have my favorite, which is M.S. Rao and Sons. And I will walk in to M.S. Rao and Sons, and I'll say hello to some of the people that I know who email me. And I will go and visit my collection of Victorian walking sticks, gimmick canes, walking sticks that do things. I have a collection, small, because it is expensive. But I walk in and I'll say to who's ever behind the counter, hello, I'm Carolyn. I'm just going to go visit my canes that you're holding for me. Thank you very much. Thank you for holding. Thank you for keeping them safe for me. And I mean, daggers and swords, those are the most common, but you've got canes that hold dice and flasks and compasses and little clocks and, fishing rods and painting sets, whole painter sets, ones that fold out into chairs, one that's a violin. I mean, they're just remarkable. They're so beautiful. So there's MS Rao, and then there's the French antique store, where I get a lot of architectural salvage off of the old plantations that they were out, these planters and these decorative pieces, and so there's that. And then there's Bourbon Street. Now, you, Eric, probably do not like New Orleans because you chanced to walk down Bourbon Street.
Yes.
So here's what I said. And here's what I said to those girls, those young girls, in St. Agatha when it premiered. And I said, here's the deal, ladies, because they'd never been. You get 6 blocks of Bourbon Street. Gotta pull my tongue. Okay, you get 6 blocks of Bourbon Street. Here's a map. Choose your 6 blocks, six consecutive blocks. We're going to walk down those blocks. You're going to see what it is. You're going to see the fights and the drunkards and the vomit and the signs for, girls, all new. You're going to see it all. And then we're never going to walk down. You will never, no matter how many times you come back, you will never walk down Bourbon Street again. The single exception is very close to the corner of St. Peter and Bourbon. It's the back entrance to the Court of the Two Sisters. And that's a lot of fun. So you got to close your eyes, and sort of feel your way along.
Yes.
Find that back entrance and then walk in. But that's a single exception. And you never have to do it because it's okay. There's New Orleans is not the South.
Yes.
Okay. It's just not. New Orleans is its own entity, and Bourbon Street is not New Orleans. Bourbon Street is Bourbon Street. That's it. That's it. And people go, oh yeah, I want to go in. I want to go to Bourbon Street. Yeah, but that's not New Orleans. New Orleans is this grande dame, who is wearing full regalia and a crown of stars. She's astonishing. So did that help you want to go?
Yes. I want to go with you. So
yes.
I think you, V2, and I need to plan a trip. So.
And I have the place to stay.
Oh, that'd be perfect.
I have the place to stay. Yeah.
That's what we need to do. So
that's New Orleans for me.
I will never argue on the food. The food is
life-changing. And believe me, there will be moments where you and V2 and I will just go, stop. Just stop. And we'll go to lunch at Commander's because they have 25-cent martinis, limit free at lunch. Yeah. And we'll see who the BOD is. BOD means Brennan on duty. And there's always, in any of the restaurants that they own, there's always a Brennan on duty to handle anything that comes up. So that's why I love New Orleans. I would retire there. I might. And my dream is to be on a series that shoots in New Orleans. You wouldn't be able to pluck me down out of the sky. I'd be so high. Seriously, that's the dream.
It is funny though. When I first met you, and part of it's because some of the characters you play before I met you, but I really thought that you were born and raised in the South.
I
And
know. I know. So many people think that. I know.
then I obviously get to know you. I'm like, you are a Burbank girl, you know. Like,
Yep, yep. I'm a Burbank girl. So Southern California. No, I think there's obviously
yeah,
a life or two or 1,000 that were lived, and
definitely.
I'm in the South, and I'm sure a lot of it probably wasn't terrific,
Yeah.
but hopefully that went to mold the character, and I'm sure that a lot of it was fantastic.
No.
And so so because I do have an affinity for it. Do I like all the things that the South represents? No, I do not. But it is what it is and what it was and
No.
what it is now becoming. So you can find because all the history of the South is not awful. It's not. It's just
Certainly, certainly.
so but we have to acknowledge what was
Of
and
course.
make it better. So
100%.
and they're doing that in New Orleans. And I
No,
will I
they
will also
are.
go ahead.
No, I just think because New Orleans has the World Audubon Zoo, which is absolutely phenomenal
Yeah,
and an incredible place
yeah,
that's doing incredible conservation work. And
yeah. Conservation, yes, they do. Yes, they do. So let's talk a little bit about either them or other conservation topics.
yeah, so one of the things I want to chat with you, and this is something I think that both you and I are really passionate about, is a little bit of our approach to conservation. And for people who aren't aware, I've lived in Ukraine, I've lived in the Philippines, I've lived in Cambodia, and one of the things I'm genuinely passionate about is I'm passionate about pragmatic conservation. And when I say that, I mean conservation where it's a win for the animals, so because animals get to continue to exist. It's a win for the local people because they get to live their lives and exist, and it's a win for the planet and a win for everyone because everyone gets to live better lives.
Right, right.
Um, and so one of the things that you and I both have actually a deep love for Cambodia and Southeast Asia. And what I wanted to talk a little bit about was, your experiences over there, what you felt like was really working, and then we can talk a little bit more about. I'll just kick it off actually. So I have some amazing friends who run elephant stays, and one of the pragmatic conservation things was, and one of the issues is when you look at the ivory trade, it's easy to say ban it all. And I think it should all be banned and everything else. And one of the things in Thailand and in Cambodia largely is banned. But what happens is people say that it was an old working elephant that died, and therefore I have the right to use the ivory however I wish, and that was a huge issue in Thailand. And so when people try to confiscate ivory, people will say, "Oh well, this was just an old working elephant." And one of the things that the people Elephant Stays did is they actually created a national ID program for all elephants in human care, where what they did is they actually went around DNA tested and photographed all of the elephants that are in human care to where every elephant got an ID and has a DNA record, so that whenever ivory comes on the market, they can actually cross-reference on a DNA test with the elephant IDs to where they can say, actually, no, this elephant was poached.
Yeah.
And so that's why I love it. It's great pragmatic conservation, because it's easy for us to say ban this, whatever. But
because anyone could say
Yeah.
any piece of ivory could say, "Oh, it was an old working elephant." No, I mean, and I'm sorry, maybe 2 out of 100 pieces of ivory were from an old working elephant.
Yes.
I mean, so that's it. It's an easy out. And the people who are who are evil in their hearts, who are not interested in conserving and preserving, who are only interested in the buck, in the money that it brings, will say anything. They will say anything. They will do anything. All right. And it's interesting, just kind of slightly off topic, because Grace Stafford and I, it's interesting because this conversation happened so long ago that I can't remember whether Gray and I are on the same team or not. And that was there are individuals who think that flooding the market with ivory, the ivory stores, as opposed to rolling them over with a steamroller and destroying them.
Yeah.
It's like if you flood the market with ivory, then ivory loses its taboo status.
Right.
It's like it's so easy, and there are stockpiles of ivory. So destroying it, I did not think it was the correct way to go. I'd like to see it flood, or the market flooded, and then taxed and regulated.
Well, because I've thought about that. I've thought about that with rhino horns, for instance,
Right.
because it's just made out of the same thing our nails are made out of, And so I thought, well, it would be kind of interesting to, and people might say this is highly unethical, but this is just allow me to extrapolate this idea that I had that I never executed, but was basically to make a deal with basically nail salons all over the country and have them collect people's nail filings and nail trimmings and stuff like that, and basically turn that into a powder that you then flood the Asian markets with, so that no one can tell what's real, what's fake, and completely crash the price. Now, the one thing I've been told by people who argue against the ivory flooding, and I argue against this because I try to talk to a lot of people and try to understand what might be the unintended consequences of my actions, is that you might make the price so cheap in a period of time that accelerates the hunting of them as people try to make up for the loss in income and revenue. And if you couple that with maybe increased wildlife patrols and increased anti-poaching efforts, so it would have to be like a coordinated effort on both sides, on the market side and on the wildlife side.
Right. Fascinating. It's a fascinating idea.
Yeah,
it's really out of the box thinking. I love that.
But that's what you and I are passionate about. Is that kind of, like, how can we actually solve the problem?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, if you look at not in Cambodia but in Thailand, right outside of Chiang Mai, Lek Chailer, who I think is an ascended being. I think she's a bodhisattva that has just stayed in physical form to help the rest of us poor sons of bitches. That's what I think about her. I love her. And her system is very pragmatic. The mahouts that she recruits, and a mahout is another word for a handler, a trainer. The mahouts that she recruits, if she sees an ankus or a bull hook in their hand, they're fired. Fired. So but she recruits them from the elephant performing camps. She recruits them, and the elephant performing camps, which are right down the road from Elephant Nature Park, those mahouts actually do have an ankus or a bull hook. But she says if she even sees one, and so she says you need to learn to care for this animal without a bull hook. If you are in danger, then you run, or then you find a safe place or whatever. But you cannot use a bull hook. Nick Marks is the same way, and he's in Cambodia. He's right outside of Phnom Penh, the Wildlife Alliance. So, and his mahouts, they are actually allowed to carry, but he says if I even see a mark on this elephant and I know it's only for self-defense, that person's fired. So it's like you have to learn the ways of the elephant without using any sort of negative reinforcement tool. And that's how you get to keep your livelihood. That's how you get to keep your job, because if you don't, you're out of a job. So people are forced to become pragmatic and forced to think outside the box. So I love that. I love it. She also has these tours come in where you can spend a week cutting up gourds for elephants, bathing elephants, taking care of these elephants, and you have to pay for it. But that's how she's able to keep Elephant Nature going. And day tours where you are fed this sumptuous vegan feast, and you get to wash and feed, and these beautiful creatures. So she's very pragmatic. She's turned it, and it's not a money making institution for either Nick or Lek. I mean, these aren't people who do not pile on the elephant, as it
Wildlife Alliance, they literally do the Lord's work in Cambodia.
The Lord's work. They absolutely do.
Yeah.
I get Nick Mark's newsletter. In fact, anyone who's interested, subscribe to Nick Mark's newsletter, and
Yeah.
you will see God's, the anti-trafficking that he is,
Yes.
trafficking he's able to stop, the anti-trafficking measures he's able to take.
Well, and what I love about what Wildlife Alliance does in Cambodia, and this is something I'll definitely speak a lot more over time, but the thing I love most is the fact is that they've been teaching, because if people know anything about Cambodian history, there was genocide, there was civil war, there were a lot of really difficult things.
Killing field. You have to go from Phnom Penh to the Wildlife Alliance, and you pass the killing fields. You go through them.
And it's tragic and horrible. And, so for a long time, like, obviously wildlife preservation was not a priority for the people of Cambodia, and very understandably, as they're undergoing famines and stuff like that. But one of the things that Wildlife Alliance has done is really introduce pragmatic conservation efforts, and they've made it a priority locally. And they're teaching Cambodians, they're doing it on their own now, without Wildlife Alliance, and it's pretty incredible what they've done, and really the change they've made in that country, and it's absolutely amazing.
Also, he's a little genius, Nick Marks. He really is, and so is Lek, because again, it's this. We're not going to continue to preserve and conserve in the same ways.
Yeah.
And that the mahouts down the road at the elephant performing camps with their cell phones and they know what's going on just up the road.
Yeah.
And so I want to get all the the Princess Cruises and the Holland Americas and whatever it is, Royal Vikings that drop off, in Cambodia or these tours. I want to get them to stop going to these performing camps and get all of those, shut them down and get all those elephants, or at least get the mahouts to stop training with the Ankus, to stop training with the bullhook. Because then when you watch these elephants perform, you know that it's a joy for them, and they're not worried about what's going to happen, that they're going to be chained up, that they're going to be, negatively reinforced. It's the same in Africa. These small villages that are being, if there's elephant encroachment, they are being taught by organizations like the Los Angeles Zoo, the San Jose, the ones that are sending troops, sending teams, sending individuals in there to educate these villagers on no, let's work with the elephants, because the Great Migration route.
Exactly.
Through Africa, it's getting wider and wider and wider. Well, I'm sorry, it's getting narrower and narrower and narrower, because the farms are getting wider and wider and wider. So the elephants are walking over these gardens, walking through these roads. Well, how can you work with the elephants as opposed to killing them for trampling your vegetables?
Exactly.
And let's make it profitable. Let's make it profitable for villages on the outskirts of these sanctuaries, of these preserves. Let's make it profitable for them to work with the preserves and be paid by the preserves, these sanctuaries, to form that first line of defense. Let's educate them. Let's educate them so that they can get jobs working for organizations and institutions that are providing that, that defensive poaching, the defense, right? The defense against poaching, I should say. Yes, so, but there are many organizations that are doing it, and pragmatic, and learning that, don't poach that elephant for its ivory. We're going to pay you not to poach it. We're going to pay you to educate. We're going to pay you to take up this rifle against somebody that wants to take that elephant's life and take that elephant, that elephant's giant fingernail.
And that's what we need. And again, a lot of this we talked about last week, but the week before, but a lot of this is funded by American zoos.
Absolutely, no question. Again, I think it's the San Jose Zoo funds the only line of defense for against guerrilla poaching, extermination, slaughter in this one particular village in Africa. And I think, I think it was on an episode of Animal Magnetism that the great Jack Hanna mentioned this particular village, this particular organization, but it's the San Jose Zoo. So you know what? Anyone who's interested, look up the San Jose Zoo. Look up
Yes.
what their conservation.
Yeah. And,
And
you know,
I should have this information at my fingertips.
ah,
But you know what? We can't know everything yet.
not
So
yet.
so look it up.
Well, I love talking about this with you, Carolyn, but I know it's time to wrap up. So
I love talking about
I will,
anything and everything with you.
I will
So
bid a,
do we have a conservation tip? Do we have a? Well, I
oh
was
yeah,
thinking about
actually,
conservation.
our conservation tip is think about your consumption. You know,
Yeah, exactly. And in that, tangential, married to that, is single-use plastics. You know what I just started doing? I just started ordering shampoo off of Amazon. You can find it in like a Lush or a
yeah,
Bath and Body or a Whole Foods. Bar shampoo. Bar
yes,
shampoo that is, it's not a single-use plastic bottle, which you then throw
Mhm.
away, which may or may not get recycled. Because apparently I heard a statistic the other day, 9%
Correct,
what we put in that blue bin is
correct,
9% that's recycled. That broke my heart. Just
yeah,
absolutely breaks my heart. So we have to work on that. But if you don't put a single-use plastic bottle in that
right.
blue bin, so you get bar shampoo, and that's fun. And believe it or not, it lasts
It does. It's
so
really good.
much longer. And it's and there's a paper wrapping.
Yeah,
Paper. Okay. Okay.
exactly.
So you know what, ladies and gents, bar shampoo, bar conditioner. That's my
Yeah,
consumption and single use tip for you all today. Bar shampoo, and think about what else you
yeah,
get in plastic bottles that you can figure out. You know what? I don't need it, or I can move to something where it's not in a plastic
100%.
bottle. And
100%.
and also, what can you make at home?
Yep.
What can you make at home? Look up recipes for things that you use, moisturizers, body moisturizers, um, um, shampoos, bath salts.
Yeah.
You don't want to squeeze those
Yes.
bath gel. Make it yourself. See
Yes.
what you can do, and store it. Store it in a glass jar. See what you can do.
Yes.
So consumption.
I
Think
love
about
that.
it.
I
Think
love
about
that.
it. And think about single use products that you just don't need and you will not take anymore. Okay? Think about
Well,
that.
I'm going to bid adieu. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and I will let you, Carolyn, sign everyone off.
Sign everyone off? Okay. All right. Goodbye, my friend. Producer Eric, one of the great, great conservationists on the planet. Truly, truly. And a very, very dear friend of the show, and actually the producer of the show. So we've talked a lot today about shenanigans. So watch General Hospital, go to New Orleans and love it, and watch and think about your consumption. Think about single use. Those are the three things. Those are your three takeaways from today. Hopefully, much, much more. But we will see you again on the next episode of Life, Love, and Conservation with Carolyn Hennesy. I am your eternally grateful host, signing off.